So then the next experiment, on the bench next to me, they were working on levitation.
They?
Other technicians, other engineers were working.
What department were they
Or
working
in
with?
advanced kinetics. The laboratory was huge, and we had different, different workbenches, and they were working on lasers to the moon and levitation.
So there was different government interest, of course, involved in some of the projects as well.
The government was funding this. This is all government funded research.
Department of the Army?
I don't know.
Just to get back to your story, though, so you had developed this pulsing,
right.
And in the next, you're saying next door?
The next bench over, they were working on levitation, and they had these just coils, iron with a copper wiring, and they had steel balls, and they would put them on top and fire it up, and they would levitate the ball for, I think, 4 to 8 minutes, and it would burn the coil out. And they were called igliotrons, I believe is the correct term for them. And they'd have to go to supply and get another one and get another one. They were burning up 2 or 3 or 4 of these. And they were in those days, that was the 50s, they were like $400 a copy. And they were just, we don't care, we got plenty of them. And they were burning these things up. So the other experiment I did at home was I took a 15-inch woofer speaker that I got out of the garage sale, or I don't know, sound system somewhere, and I put it just flat on the carpet on my living room floor, and attached my audio amplifier to it, and I started experimenting with like acoustical levitation, thinking, well, they're using this force to push up, and they're using a lot of power. I'll try sound waves. I'll try sympathetic vibrations or whatever. So I fooled around with different objects, and I'd have tentative results. It'd start pulsing and stuff. And then I put a ping pong ball in the center, and I kept fooling, and I think it was 28,000 cycles. I got the ping pong ball to come up.
Interesting you mention that, because I recall seeing a news clip back in 1989 showing the scientist discovered how to do exactly what you just described.
This was back in, the 60s or something?
The 50s.
50s, oh God.
Pulsing was quite simple, and, it can be done today, it can be duplicated today, I suppose. I never tried it, I didn't think, to go back to it, but it was a very simple operation, because you let nature do all the work, and all I did was understand what was happening. So, and the same with the ping pong ball. Once I got it to levitate, I was excited as heck, and my wife said, come to bed, so I went to bed, and the next morning when I woke up, the ping pong ball was still sitting there, just
levitating.
And this was like, I think it was 28,000 cycles.
No heat?
No heat.
And sound, but sound.
Acoustical sound is all it was.
Now, was it audible to the human ear as far as the sound that
it was
you were
above.
generating?
It's just, I couldn't hear a thing.
So you're talking perhaps high frequency level, or ultra low, or ultra high?
Yeah, I experimented with different, down in the lower ranges, and nothing seemed to happen. It had bounced and stuff, but when I got up
in the UHF,
yeah, then
magic happened.
Then it happened. So I thank my wife for the pushing into that direction, because this is my field. This is what I always wanted to do, and I think we're onto something here, and I can put my 2 cents into the pot and help humanity do something.
Way back then, you knew all this.
Oh yeah.
And so, but you took it to these guys, right? And how did they react?
I took it to Dr. Weinhardt himself. I took Polaroids, and I wrote up papers on it, just like I did with at the lab. And I took it into Dr. Weinhardt, and he says, "Close the door. Come in. Sit down." He said, he looked it all over and stuff, and he said, "Yeah, I know it's that simple, Ralph. I know that. But this is a government-funded research facility. We count on the funds to keep us going. We're not necessarily interested right now in finding the answers. We're interested in looking for them. and we get paid handsomely for looking for the answers. And I said, well, here, look, this works. I mean, maybe I don't know what I'm doing, and maybe it's not right, but I thought if I turned it over to the boys here, we can come together, and this is a lot simpler than $400 a copy for igliotrons and wasting our time with the cathode, that you got set up. And he says, well, I can appreciate what you've come up with, and I didn't think you'd get there this fast with this because of your interest in natural law, but I'm going to have to shred this. He had a shredder right there. I'm going to have to shred this and tell you to go back to work on what you were doing. Well, right there, my whole world collapsed. I mean, I thought, where am I? I mean, I didn't, my whole attitude, my whole demeanor towards the world changed.
Who are these people anyway?
Yeah.
And who are they really working for?
Right. That's exactly the way I felt. So
So eventually you actually left the job, right?
Yeah.
You just got...
To make a long story short, I went back, I worked another 2 weeks, and I couldn't stand it. That's it, I'm done. So, but during this period, I started meeting people, just coincidentally, who were, most people I talked to outside of the lab didn't want to talk science. They wanted to talk other things. So I had very limited contacts with other people that were interested in science. Except I started meeting, I met this one person that said, well, what you're talking about is exactly what they're talking about in these meetings that I go to. And the name of the meetings are called Understanding. And they were developed by a person called Daniel Fry, who was in the UFO and stuff. And they want to understand more. Why don't you come to one of our meetings and talk? Well, I went to the meetings and I kind of duplicated what I just said about where I was working, and they said, you've got to meet somebody. You've got to meet Mr. Carr.
What year was this about?
Well, I think it was late 59 or early 60s. Mm-hmm. And they said, you guys are talking the same thing, the same exact thing. And I said, well, okay. He said, well, coincidentally, we're in touch with, he just had some bad luck in Norman, Oklahoma. That's where he was trying to demonstrate the craft, the flying discs. And they started negatively defining his work. And the newspapers got a hold of it, and he's trying to get funds to do something that's impossible, and science has just never heard of such a thing, and so forth. So we're going to bring him out here, and we're going to get a lab out here, and let him with his entourage, and let's go. Let's try another place, another time, and see if we can get somewhere. So they did. And I met with Carr and his entourage. He had Dennis Ripolte, Norman Colton, Wayne Aho. I don't know, there's about 6 of them.
He had a little consortium going on here.
And where was this based now? Where was your group based?
Okay, this was in Costa Mesa, California, where these understanding meetings were, and that's where I met Carr.
Okay.
But they found out